but I started out a long time ago, just like you guys, in school. I was one of these kind of students that really didn't like any kind of classes, from social studies to English to math. I really was bored with school, but I took a liking to any kind of business class that we had, from like business management to accounting to marketing. Any kind of class that had to do with business, I loved it. It was something that I really enjoyed, and I gave my full attention. And the teachers took a liking to me because I seemed to understand the concept of what was going on. So early on in junior high, I had to, I grew up poor, so we moved around a lot. You know, we'd stay in a house for 2 months or 3 months, and then we moved to another house, and then, you know, we'd stay there another 2 or 3 months. But I had the privilege of staying at the same school. So I had a good friend base, but at the same time, we still were struggling at home, so we had to make money and stay afloat. So one of the things I did was learning in business class, and learning it from junior high was, you know, I needed to find a way to set myself up to make sure that we didn't struggle at home. So that way my sister and brother and myself, we had food every night. So one of the things that I did was, I got this idea one day. I was in the grocery store, and I'm like, I'm going to buy some Little Debbie snack cakes. At the time, they were like 79 cents for these Little Debbies, and there was like 12 to a pack. So I figured if I take them to school in the morning and put them in my backpack, I could sell them things for like 25 to 50 cents a piece. Since there was like 12 of them in a box, I could make enough money to buy a good dinner. You know, we could go get some spaghetti and some spaghetti sauce, and we'd have a good dinner that night. So I started doing that, and I became successful. In the morning at school, I would sell Little Debbies, and then after school, I would sell Little Debbies. During lunch, I would sell Little Debbies. And before you know it, I was the Little Debbie man. I was selling lots of Little Debbie snack cakes. What was nice about that is that I made a lot of money doing that. And in turn, I was able to buy groceries for the family, but also I was able to go roller skating. I had a passion for roller skating. So every Friday and Saturday night, I'd be at the skating rink, and I'd be enjoying my time, and I had enough money to go. And at the same time, I was being successful selling these snack cakes. So I joined a program called Future Business Leaders of America when I was in 7th grade, called FBLA. And what I did with that project was, to compete into state and national competitions, we had to design a business concept. So one of the things that I wanted to do was come up with a concept. By selling Little Debbies, I knew that it was a good business. The kids loved snacks. You know, we didn't care about having the school cafeteria food, but I loved the snack part of it. So I decided that I would do, we would start our first student-run corporation. And what that was all of the students that were in my business classes would become the stockholders. And we would actually start a business selling cinnamon rolls in the morning. So we got a hold of the cafeteria, and they provided us the space for free as long as we kept it clean and cleaned up after we were done. So an hour before school started, we actually bought milk from the school district, we sold it to the kids, and then we made cinnamon rolls. All the kids did, and we volunteered time. They had work schedules when they would come to work, and we actually owned this business. It was a student-run business. And all the money that we made by doing this funded field trips, so that way we could go out and see businesses, we could fund business activities, we could go to state competitions. And it was a very successful business, and it's still intact today. I'm still one of the original stockholders of the company. It's not worth any money, really, because it's owned, you know, it belongs to the school. But we started that 19 years ago, and it's still in business to this day. And it's in a town called, it's at Lincoln Junior High in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they still run that program to this day. And it was very successful, and I was proud to be a part of that program. It won me state and national recognition for starting that company. And it was my start of the first kind of business that I was in. And from that, I just grew. You know, I took a liking to any kind of business class, and I continued to shine in that element. And then after junior high, I moved into high school. I still continued to sell Little Debbie snack cakes. I mean, it was a great way for me to make a lot of money and still help fund school. But then I started branching out. At that time, when I moved into high school, I started mowing lawns, anything to make money. I was painting. During the summertime, I was painting apartments. Whatever I needed to do to make money, that's what I did. So by the time I was in the high school, I was already pretty successful at making money. I started excelling a little bit better in school. I had more, more focus. I was more driven to excel in that. And as we came through, as I became a junior, I was looking at, where's my life going to go? At that time, you're like, am I going to go to college? Am I going to own my own company someday? Am I going to race cars? All of those things were coming through my mind. Well, at the time, every summer I also went racing with my uncle. He was a very good race car driver. And every summer I would work with him on Friday and Saturday night. We'd go to the local dirt track and we'd go racing. And all I was kind of the guy that helped change the tires and, you know, just watch him out on the track. But I knew that I wanted to do that. I knew that that was my goal in life, is to become a race car driver. My family, though, my parents weren't very supportive of that fact. So, you know, they weren't supportive of me wanting to drive a race car. They were supportive of me making money and going to school, but driving a race car just wasn't a realistic goal, they thought. But to me it was. So I knew that I had to go out and work hard in order to be able to drive a race car one day. So with that in mind, my senior year I entered into a program called on-the-job training, OJT they called it. And that program basically meant that I went to school until third period of the day, and at the end of third period, I would go out and work into a company. But like most of the kids, they were signed up with a business and they'd go and work 3-4 hours a day, and you'd get 2 or 3 credits for that to be able to do that. I decided that I would open up my own business. And at that time, what I decided to do was work on vacation rental properties. At this time, we had moved to Florida. It was my first year back into Florida. I left school as a junior and had to make all new friends as a senior. And I decided that I would start this business where I would basically take care of vacation rentals and I would clean them up. I would clean them, I would paint them, I would clean the carpets. Whatever needed to be done to that place, paint the outside, landscape, whatever, I would give one bid and do it. And the realtor actually hired me to do the first project. And then after that, I got more and more projects. Well, part of my grade was to bring in my pay stubs that showed, you know, how I was doing, making sure that I was going to work every day. So as I started bringing these pay stubs into my teacher's like, wow, you're making $2,000 to $3,000 a week. And I was. I literally would work from the time I got out of school at 11 o'clock till 10 or 11 at night. And that money that I was making was way more than even my teachers were making. So my business teacher was like, wow, I need to come work for you. So my business teacher later on actually came and worked for me on the side to make extra money because I was doing so well. And through that, I was able to hire a couple of my classmates to actually go out and help me too, do side jobs and work. And it was totally just driven off of my motivation to go out and just ask for the work. A lot of times we just sit back and we just wait for something to happen in our life, and instead of just waiting for something to happen, I went out and actually found something to make it happen. And it was a great time. I was having the best life, you know. I didn't get to go out and do a lot of parties, or I couldn't be in sports a lot, but I was working and I was making money, and it showed me what my calling was in life. So I went out to do that. And you guys, when you come up, if you want to come out or later, I brought my actual yearbook that you guys are more than happy to take a look at from 1993. That's when I graduated. And in this yearbook, you'll see that, you know, all the students and all my friends wrote in here. They all said, good luck with your business and good luck with racing. Because back then, I told everybody I was going to be a race car driver and that I was going to be successful in business. So what actually happened in the back of my yearbook, you'll see there's actually a story on me as well. It's called A Day in the Life of Chuck Hummer, where they actually followed me around and they observed me working, and they talked about what it was like to be you know, a student that owns his own company, where most of the kids were just not even having jobs yet. Their parents were still supporting them, or maybe they worked part-time in a job where I actually owned a company. So that story's in the back of the yearbook as well, so you guys can take a look at that. Well, through that, all of a sudden I'm a senior in high school. All of a sudden my grades from being in school in Wisconsin, I was a CD student. I wasn't that great. My senior year, all of a sudden, I became a straight A honor roll student. I had a grade point average of 4.2 even going in my senior year. So my whole life was beginning to change because I was growing up. I was seeing that if I wanted to make it in this world, I had to make a change in my life. I had to be more focused and more driven in order to get to where my final goals were going to be. So with that, senior year's approaching, graduation's happening. I graduated and I continue to stay in my business. I had the option of going away to college, but I thought to myself, well, you know, if college really isn't an option for me, I'm going to continue to stay working in the business world, and that's what I did. But through working really hard, I worked out on an island called Sanibel Island in Captiva. It's right outside of Fort Myers, Florida on the Gulf Coast. And through that, I met a couple of very influential people that was in my life. And through that, I met one guy by the name of Wayne Huizenga, who actually owns the Miami Dolphins. And at the time, he owned Blockbuster Video. I actually took care of his personal condo out on Captiva, so I did the maintenance and anything for him. Well, as I'm continuing to work, I decided that, you know, all my family lives up in Michigan and Ohio, so I'm getting bored with what I was doing. So I decided that I would sell my business, and I sold it to a company called Home Tech, which did more maintenance things on appliances and stuff like that. So they bought my business. I had a 5-year contract to do maintenance for the property, so they bought my company, and then I moved to Ohio. I get to Ohio, I show up there, and I'm like, I got a pocket full of cash, and I'm like, what am I going to do next? You know, I want to race cars is what I really want to do. But I knew that my money would go fast if I just started racing cars and blowing it. So I actually got a phone call about 2 months after being there from Wayne Huizenga saying he was going to start this new company called Extended Stay of America. And what that is, it's actually hotels that are for business travelers. And have a little kitchen in it, a bed, and a TV, and they were going to build these hotels. He asked me if I wanted to be a project manager. They were going to build a second hotel in Holland, Ohio, and I said, I know nothing about building hotels. He's like, you don't really need to know anything. I want you to babysit the guy that actually knows how to build hotels. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like a great job, just a babysitter, you know? So I took that job on, and it was a very fun job, actually. I learned a lot about construction. You know, I knew the maintenance side of things, but I didn't know the construction side of things. So I did that project. Then I built another one in Farmington Hills, Michigan. And through that, I met a couple more influential people that was in the automotive business, and that was my real passion. I loved cars. I loved working on cars. In high school, I had a '63 Chrysler Newport with a 383 in it. I shaved the door handles. I had a flamethrower kit on it. I mean, it was just a tricked out car. And I really loved it. I had a Pontiac Firebird, and I bought all these because I worked really hard. So I knew I loved cars, and he says, you should get in the automotive chemical business. It's a great business. So I researched it. All of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm going to start my own chemical company. So I left building hotels and bought a van, an old Ford van, a 1986 Ford van is exactly what I bought. And I got some chemicals, and I went door to door to service garages and dealerships and tried to talk them into buying my programs. Well, at the time, I wasn't able to get a lot of people. Just were like, yeah, well, you know, we use this product and we use that product. Why is yours so much better? Well, I didn't know. I didn't know why my product would be better than anybody else's. So I started researching the other products that I was competing against, and I knew I had to learn the business in order to be successful selling. Well, at this time, I used most of my money, of course, trying to open up this company. And at this time, I got married as well, so I had a wife to support, and she's going through college. So times were getting tough. My money was draining down. So, you know, like most people would sit around and say, hey, what do I need to do? Well, I needed to keep my business running and supporting itself. So what I did for the next 3 months, is while my business was building off the ground, is I ended up giving plasma. It's something you can do, you donate it, but you also get paid to do it. So I said, you know, instead of sitting around and not getting paid, I figured for the next 3 months, 2 times a week, I went and gave plasma $135 a time, which was $70 a week. You know, I was kind of embarrassed to do it, but at the same time, I knew that I needed that extra money to buy groceries. So I did it while my business was still trying to grow. And I never even told my wife that I did this. I just went out and did it because I didn't want her to know I was failing at my business. But in reality, I wasn't failing. It was just growing. And with that trying to grow, we got it to raise up. And eventually it started taking off because of my hard work and just keep pounding on doors. For every no that I got, I kept going back 2 weeks later until the guy finally got sick of seeing me. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you my business. And that's what I continued to do. And eventually everybody knew who I was. Well, at that time, I'm an 18, 19-year-old kid going in to try to explain how I'm going to sell all these chemicals to these guys when they're 20 years older than me. What's a 19-year-old kid going to tell them that they don't already know? So I needed a gimmick. I figured, well, what is going to be my gimmick that's going to be different than everybody else? So I decided that I was going to wear a suit and tie every day, and I was going to go in and I was going to show these guys I was capable of going in and outselling anybody. But what I did was I would wear unique ties. I decided that I was going to go buy the most outlandish ties that you could find. From a Mickey Mouse tie to you name it, if it had crazy designs on it, that's what I did. I wanted to be able so everybody would remember me when I came knocking on their door that that's the guy that wears the crazy ties. So I started doing that and it helped. It helped grow my business. Everybody knew that, oh, here comes this guy again. You know, he's rolling in, he's got the crazy tie. So they liked me coming in because they're like, what kind of tie are you going to come in today with? And I'm like, well, this is my crazy tie. So as business continued to boom, all of a sudden, my company's growing and I need to bring in some sales guys. And as I'm bringing in sales guys, I also need to know how to continue to grow my business. I need to know what it is that I do works. So what happened was I decided to intern actually at a car dealership because I wanted to see how the car dealership worked. I needed to know that if I was going to be successful, how does this car dealership work? What do I need to do in that car dealership to make it successful so they can use my products? And that's what I was selling. I was selling transmission kits, I was selling coolant kits, power steering kits, anything to flush out all the fluids in your vehicles. That's what I was selling to these service shops and service providers. So I needed to make sure that they knew that my product was the best to use and that I was going to give them the best service. So I actually started working in the car dealership to learn the business. And once I learned that, I stepped up to a whole new level. My sales went from $1,000 a week to $3,000 a week. Then it went from $3,000 a week to $5,000, and $5,000 to $10,000. Eventually, I was personally selling $1 million a year in chemicals.
Mr. Cruz?
I'm from that.
No, I just need
So
you to